Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a speech that is so incredibly short you could have honestly missed it if you sneezed.
Chuckles slightly. You really could have.
We are talking about the Gettysburg Address. It's fewer than 300 words, delivered in what, about 2 minutes?
About 2 minutes, yes.
And yet it's just widely considered the defining, most resonant articulation of American democracy and its values.
Absolutely. The cornerstone, in many ways.
It's so easy to just think of this speech as a historical curiosity, something you had to memorize back in school.
Right, a chore.
Exactly. But our mission today is to show you why it is, in fact, a radical masterpiece of political literature.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack the horrific, bloody context of the ceremony itself.
Which is so critical.
And we'll debunk some of those enduring myths about how it was created, dive deep into the rhetorical genius packed into every single clause, and then, this is the really fascinating part, look at the dramatically polarized reception it got, especially how its core message of equality was, well, basically suppressed and censored at first.
To really appreciate those 2 minutes, you absolutely have to frame the scene. This was not some polished, celebratory event.
Yeah.
The dedication took place on November 19th, 1863. That's just 4 months after the three-day Battle of Gettysburg.
A pivotal turning point in the war, but just unbelievably bloody.
Unbelievably. We're talking about nearly 50,000 men shot, wounded, or killed over 3 days.
And this ceremony was for dedicating the Soldiers' National Cemetery. Lincoln was just there to give, what was it, a few appropriate remarks?
That was the official invitation, yes, a few appropriate remarks.
Yes.
The staggering reality, though, is that the audience was standing on ground still saturated with that sacrifice.
And the physical scene, it just underscores that trauma, doesn't it? It wasn't like they were dedicating a finished, beautiful memorial park.
Not at all.
When the attendees gathered, the actual reinterments of thousands of Union dead were still actively underway.
That's such a critical piece of context. Of the 3,500 eventual Union burials, only about 1,200 had actually been put into place.
So if you were in the audience, you would have been surrounded by
hundreds of open graves, or, mounds of freshly turned earth. You might have even seen or heard the work still going on.
Wow.
The immense, immediate scale of the sacrifice was tangible. It was visible, visceral. Not just some abstract number in a newspaper.
And that whole ceremonial setup, it creates this fantastic historical paradox. You have the president, Abraham Lincoln, but he's intentionally positioned as the warm-up act.
He really was. He was asked to offer just a few appropriate remarks.
Just a few remarks.
Precisely. The main spotlight, the real star of the show, was supposed to be Edward Everett.
And who was Edward Everett?
Everett was, he was universally revered as the preeminent orator of the age. He was the Michael Jordan of public speaking back then.
I'll try.
He was the one person everyone believed could truly do justice to the scale of the moment. His oration was the expected centerpiece.
So what did Everett deliver? What did this Michael Jordan of oratory give them?
Everett delivered a sweeping classical oration that lasted nearly 2 hours.
2 hours.
Almost. It was a 13,500-word deep dive into the history of the war, a detailed chronological narrative of the Battle of Gettysburg.
So a history lesson.
A huge history lesson, and a treatise on the virtues of the dead. It was traditional, it was exhaustive, and it was exactly what the crowd expected from a major dedicatory address.
And then in this just stunning contrast, Lincoln stands up. And in less than 120 seconds, he delivers fewer than 300 words. Given the weight of the occasion and the 2 hours of elaborate rhetoric that just came before him, wasn't that brevity initially seen as, disrespectful, underwhelming?
It was certainly unexpected, and some critics, they definitely felt it was too brief, even insulting.
I can imagine.
But for many others, the power was immediate. And what's so fascinating here is that Edward Everett, the master orator himself, he immediately recognized the power of Lincoln's concision.
He did.
Oh, yes. He later wrote to Lincoln requesting a copy of the address, and he said, and this is a fantastic quote, that he wished he came as near to the central idea of the occasion in 2 hours as you did in 2 minutes.
Wow. That's the ultimate endorsement, isn't it?
It's the ultimate historical mic drop.
That recognition that Lincoln had found the central idea is so telling. Okay, let's unpack this. The enduring myths surrounding how this masterpiece was even created.
Right.
Because the persistent story, the one I think we all heard, is that Lincoln just kind of threw it together at the last minute.
That's the myth. And it's been perpetuated largely by a work of fiction that came out decades later, a book called The Perfect Tribute.
And the idea is what? He scribbled it hastily on a scrap of paper.
On the back of an envelope, maybe, while he was jostling along on the train ride from Washington to Gettysburg. It's a very romantic idea.
It's a great story, but it's easy to debunk once you actually look at the paper trail, right?
Absolutely. Lincoln experts have confirmed this was not some impromptu speech he just dashed off. He started working on the concepts and the drafts shortly after the battle itself, back in July of 1863.
So he was thinking about it for months.
For months. And more importantly, we have the evidence. We have 5 known, authenticated, handwritten copies. The Nicolay, the Hay, the Everett, the Bancroft, and the Bliss copies.
And they're all in his normal handwriting.
All written in Lincoln's normal, steady handwriting. That completely contradicts the whole idea of him trying to compose it on a bumpy, moving train. It shows rigorous, meticulous editing and redrafting.
So he was still polishing it then?
Yes. He finalized the speech only after he arrived in Gettysburg while staying at the Wills house the night before the ceremony.
And there's a great story from that night, isn't there?
There is. A fantastic, very revealing anecdote from that night of November 18th. A crowd gathered outside the Wills house. They were serenading him, and they started demanding an impromptu speech.
And he declined, right?
He did. He was keenly self-aware of the gravity of the next day. He came out and told the crowd that it is somewhat important that I should not say any foolish things.
Goals.
And then he added that the only way to avoid that is to say nothing at all. He then went back inside to finish crafting those dedicatory remarks, knowing that every single word would be scrutinized.
So if he was finalizing the speech right then, maybe making small changes. That brings up the famous theological question.
Yes.
The phrase, under God.
It's the great mystery embedded right in the text. The 2 earliest drafts we have, the Nicolay and Hay copies, they actually omit the phrase, under God, entirely from that line about the nation's purpose.
So the script he had prepared, his notes, might not have even included it.
Exactly. But here's the complication. The 3 later versions Lincoln wrote out, and 4 contemporary newspaper accounts that recorded the live delivery.
They all have it.
They all include it. This has led many historians to speculate that Lincoln spontaneously inserted the phrase while he was speaking.
Like in the moment?
Right. Perhaps feeling in that moment that the prepared text just lacked the necessary moral or spiritual gravity for the soldiers and the grieving crowd standing in front of him.
So that means a line that's often used to define American piety and purpose might have been a one-time improvisation?
A spontaneous addition by a president trying to connect emotionally with that moment. It raises this important question. Did he feel the prepared, purely secular text just wasn't enough to consecrate that level of sacrifice?
Wow. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the rhetorical brilliance of the address is how Lincoln achieved that monumental task of redefinition in such a tiny, tiny space.
He really accomplished 2 things at once. He simultaneously honored the dead, and he completely redefined the entire purpose of the Civil War.
And he does it from the very first line.
From the very first words. He immediately anchors the speech, not just in history, but in founding ideals. 7 years ago.
That 87-year reference is so deliberate, isn't it? He's grounding the war not in 1787, the Constitution.
Which was the document the South constantly cited for states' rights and secession.
Right. Instead, he goes back to 1776, to the Declaration of Independence.
Absolutely. He just bypasses all the complex legal and constitutional arguments and goes straight to the moral foundation, the proposition that all men are created equal.
That was a revolutionary change in focus for the war effort in 1863.
It was a huge shift. He's changing the war from just preserving the Union to actually fulfilling the promise of equality.
And scholars also note he consciously used these classical structures to lend that kind of ancient gravitas to his short sentences.
Yes. Historians often point out its structural similarity to Pericles' Funeral Oration from ancient Athens, the Epitaphios Logos.
So he's borrowing from the Greeks?
He's using a highly condensed version of that classical structure. He starts with the praise of ancestors, or prognoi, when he speaks of, "Our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation."
And then he connects that lineage directly to the sacrifice they're standing on.
Exactly. That transitions right into the praise of the dead's excellence, or our dieste, when he refers to those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. He's taking centuries of classical tradition about honoring the fallen and packing it into 2 short paragraphs.
And he also used specific rhetorical devices so masterfully to make it instantly memorable, instantly quotable.
Precisely. Take his use of contrast or antithesis. He smashes opposing ideas together to create this powerful emotional resonance. Think about that line. Gave their lives that that nation might live.
Life and death.
Life and death, contrasted right there to maximize the impact. And then there's the power of three, the tricolon, which is arguably what makes the speech so inherently rhythmic and easy to remember.
He uses it early on when he's talking about the impossibility of their task.
Right. When he's discussing the dedication itself, he uses this powerful overkill. We cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground.
Three synonyms.
Three synonyms to drive home a single profound point. The soldier's sacrifice has already done the work. No words of ours can even compare.
And then he saved the most famous tricolon for that powerful close.
The closing is just perfect. Government of the people, by the people, for the people.
The definition of democracy.
It's an assertion of popular sovereignty, a definition of democracy itself, and it is instantly memorable because of that perfect three-part structure.
Ultimately, though, his central goal was really a call to action.
It was. He reframed the whole conflict as a great civil war, testing whether that nation can long endure. He wasn't just eulogizing, he was demanding dedication to the unfinished work.
And that work, he says, must lead to a new birth of freedom.
A new birth of freedom and the preservation of democracy for generations to come.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. The immediate reception was a mirror image of the divided nation, but the Southern reaction was shocking in just how deliberate it was.
Yes. In the North, the reaction was completely polarized. Pro-union papers, especially the Republican ones, instantly lauded it.
What were they saying?
They were calling it immortal, a profound statement. They recognized its literary power right away. But the Northern Democratic opposition papers, reflecting that political division, were extremely hostile.
They didn't like it.
Hated it. They called it dull and commonplace, and mostly just complained about its brevity.
But despite those critics, the contemporary reports say the audience itself was moved.
Yes, absolutely. Reports noted frequent breaks for applause during the delivery and hearty applause at the very end. So Lincoln knew his audience, even if the partisan press didn't want to agree.
Okay. Now let's talk about the Confederate South, specifically the highly influential Richmond press. They didn't just criticize the address,
No.
They actively censored it.
That's the crucial difference. The Richmond editors, who were essentially the mouthpieces of the Confederacy, they had access to the full text through Northern papers. They knew what he said.
But they chose not to print it.
They made a deliberate political choice not to print the text of the address itself.
So what did they print instead?
Instead, they focused all their attacks on Lincoln's throwaway, impromptu comments from the night before.
The very comments he was worried might sound foolish.
The very ones. They successfully diverted all the attention by mocking him as the clown, whose remarks were silly, without ever showing their readers the actual dedicated speech he gave.
And the reason for this act of suppression was entirely ideological, wasn't it? It wasn't just political bickering.
Absolutely not. They intentionally suppressed the speech because of its explicit affirmation that all men are created equal and its urgent call for a new birth of freedom.
They knew what he was doing.
They immediately understood that Lincoln had tied the war directly to the despised Emancipation Proclamation. By censoring it, they protected their readers from the North's powerful moral justification for the war.
It's just so much easier to attack him for some off-the-cuff remarks.
Far less dangerous than attacking the revolutionary ideas contained within those 272 words.
And we can track this profound ideological divide even 100 years later, right? During the 1963 centennial.
It's amazing how long it lasted. The century that followed had, slightly softened Lincoln's personal reputation in the South. He was often viewed as a tragic figure or a kind man who would have avoided the horrors of Reconstruction.
But the address itself?
The address itself remained ideologically toxic to some.
How did that actually play out in the media 100 years on?
Well, in the North, the New York Times gave the centennial massive coverage, celebrating the address as this foundational American document.
Okay.
Now, contrast that with the Richmond News Leader. Their coverage was often just relegated to neutral Associated Press accounts, or, get this, they ran articles that specifically condemned the address's literary style.
You're kidding.
Nope. Criticizing its repetition, calling his famous phrases cliches.
Wow. So it became a litmus test. The address was integral to Northern public memory, celebrated at Memorial Day events.
Right.
But it was conspicuously absent from Southern Confederate memorial services.
It just reinforces that lasting sectional divide over racial equality. The address was used to define American identity in the North, based on the Declaration. but its core message was simply too inconvenient for the South to fully embrace, even a century after the war.
So what does this all mean then?
It means the Gettysburg Address wasn't just a brief speech delivered by a president. It was, in effect, a successful refounding document. It redefined the entire Civil War.
Oh, so?
It stopped being a fight over territory or tariffs, or even just preserving the Union. He reframed it as a moral test of the nation's core value of equality.
It's such a powerful lesson in intentional communication. I mean, given the meticulous process Lincoln followed, the drafting, the conscious decision to risk embarrassment with brevity, you just have to appreciate how every single word was chosen to contrast so sharply with the long traditional oratory of the era. He condensed the entire American experience into a few rhythmic, perfect paragraphs.
Really did.
And Lincoln, he famously claimed when thinking about the ceremony, "The world will little note nor long remember what we say here," was profoundly incorrect.
And that's the enduring irony, isn't it? And maybe the challenge for us.
What do you mean?
Well, given that pro-Confederate editors actively censored the speech because of its core message of equality in 1863, and that resistance to that message continued for a century, what does this tell us about the difficulty of achieving true, lasting national unity when the foundational words we choose to remember actively challenge deeply held conflicting societal beliefs?